Welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast, where we explore the spirituality of the Christian child through the method of the catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I am your host, Carrie Mecchi-Lozano. Today we have Donna Turner and Julie Baltuska joining me on the podcast to talk about the Level 3 Atrium. What all is in that huge work that is the Level 3 Atrium? What does the Level 3 child have to teach us about who God is? And to encourage all of us to continue our formation all the way through Level 3 and the benefits that would be no matter what level you choose to serve. We know that summer is fast approaching along with all the different formations that are happening all over the country. And so we want to encourage you to prayerfully consider participating in a Level 3 formation. I hope you enjoy. Julie and Donna, welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast.
Thank you so much for having us again, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you both on the podcast and all your wisdom being shared with us. So how about you guys tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got involved with catechesis?
Well, I'll start us off, and I became involved in Catechesis of the Good Shepherd in 1993, and that just as kind of a exploration of other approaches to spiritual formation for children. And then in landing on that, it totally was a great match for me and for the children that I was serving, and so that's just led to this lengthy journey for me. And it's actually been for me that I've been 25 years with the children in Level 3 now, which is really hard to believe.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I'm Julie Baltuska, and I live in Kansas City with my husband, who's retired, and we've raised 7 children. We have 9 grandchildren, and I got involved about the same time as Donna, maybe 1995. Maine Coon introduced it to me, and when I realized maybe a year after she started talking about it that it was an answer to prayer that I had prayed for 20 years since my first child had been born, then I was all in. And I've been I'm a formation leader in Level 3, and I've been in it about as long as Donna, and in the Level 3 since maybe 2002, so almost 22. Yeah.
That's a lot of years in Level 3.
Mm-hmm. All a joy.
And Donna, you're also a formation leader for Level 3, correct?
I am, yes.
That's awesome. And so Julie, was Ms. Merrily your formation leader?
No, well, unofficially at first. She gathered some mothers from her school, and on one Saturday morning, a week during the summer, presented some things to them, just as if she would present them to the children. And she invited me to come to that. So that's how I first got a taste of it. Rebecca Shevitz and Tina Lillig. Well, let's see. My Level 1 was actually Sister Sheila Sentif, and Level 2 I took with Rebecca in St. Louis, and then Level 3, Rebecca and Tina in Chicago. And then I actually hosted 2 more Level 3s right subsequent to that, and Donna was one of my formation leaders as I was hosting another 2. So I've learned a whole lot from Donna, and she's my go-to when I have questions.
Oh, thank you,
She
Julie.
always has good answers.
And Donna, who were your formation leaders?
Rebecca Roitsevich lives here in Memphis, where I'm from, and so my formation has all been with Rebecca.
That's awesome.
So, yes.
That's so cool. Okay, so with all of your extensive knowledge and many years that you have spent in the Level 3 Atrium, I really want to just pick your brain about this level, because I think we spent a lot of time pondering the Level 1 child, which is natural. I think that's the foundation where we should start out. therefore we haven't spent as much time pondering the level 3 child. And so since you two have had so many years of experience in this level specifically, I would love to pick your brain about it. But what drew you to this level? Why have you spent so many years in this level?
It is my favorite. I always knew from the beginning that I would fit better working with the older children. And they're my favorite age child. And the content of the level 3, the content of the mysteries that we contemplate it's my favorite also. It's a lot of Old Testament, the great stories of the Old Testament typology, and that just feeds my faith, and as much as it does the faith of the children, I think. And level 3 restored my hope. I was at a place in my life where I didn't have a whole lot of hope. I was despairing. I read the newspaper every day, and there was just darkness all around. And just delving into level 3 and being there with the children week after week totally restored my hope. And I see that that's what it does for the children. It's a foundation of hope for them in this world that has so much darkness in it. It's just a joy for me to sit with the children and to give them that gift through just contemplating the mysteries that we contemplate together.
And I think for me, what drew me to level 3 is really getting to see the children becoming who they are as a person, and that in relationship to God and in relationship to others as well too. And I really do find that I am a lot more at home with the buzzy nature and the conversations that are part of a level 3 atrium time versus the silence of the level 1 atrium. So I think maybe it's just a better fit for my personality as well too. That so that is for me. And another thing that really drew me to level 3 is we're not abandoning that content that we had in our formations for level 1 and level 2, because we still draw from that. But in level 3, it's that whole scope that we get to choose from every bit of that. What is it that the children need? And so that I could say we're honing a skill that goes across the whole scope of catechesis of the Good Shepherd.
Right.
That way. Yeah.
And I agree that level 3 seems like a fulfillment of level 1 and level 2. And it almost finishes what we started. I know it's not an end, but there's just so much like expanding out, and just everything comes together in level 3. It just felt like everything was coming together. And now it made level 1, gave more sense to the level 1 and made sense of the level 2. For me, it was just a fulfillment kind of feeling.
It's almost like there's overlap, like where in level 1 you have these separate, what would be the right word? Topics, I guess. We're talking about the history of the kingdom of God. We're talking about the incarnation over here. We're talking about the Good Shepherd here. It's a little bit more separate. But then when you get to level 3, there's so much more overlap and synthesis that's happening where it all kind of pulls together, and you can make these connections between all of the different sections, if that makes sense at all.
It does. In fact, some of the things they've seen in isolation, they've seen it, whether it has to do with the parables of the kingdom or whether it has to do with the Eucharist. They've seen those things in isolation. But then in level 2, it begins. But in level 3, there's a real fullness of those connections and things that they get to see.
So you tapped on it just a little bit, but I want to go deeper into level 3 and its content. So what is the deeper content that we hit in this level for this 9 to 12-year-old child?
I think we've touched on it already. I think that word globalita of Sophia Cavalletti is so important, because in the level 3 and the cosmic education as well, the globalita is the answer to the child's need for cosmic education. This age child, well, step back a minute. To talk about this age child and their needs, I remember someone saying, it might have been Anna Hurdle, talking about the psychic space of the age of the child. And like from 0 to 6 years old, their psychic space was mom, only mom. And by the time they're around the age of 6, they are full of mom and they're ready to turn around and go out. And I expected her to say into the neighborhood, but she didn't say the neighborhood was their psychic space. She said the universe is now their psychic space, which is so vast. I was just astounded by that. But it's true. And then the cosmic education of Maria Montessori, the globalita that Sophia Cavalletti talks about, is a perfect match for that psychic space where they now want to go out and explore and take in and absorb all of it. And by globalita, she's talking about, too, the vast history of the world and biblical history.
So, right, that again, you see that globalita, that's not just physical space. We're also talking about time as well.
Yes. And it's the whole picture, the big picture. They want the whole picture. And level 3 gives them the big picture. Every work that we do, every presentation that we give, it always comes back to that big picture. And that's why it just seems so unifying to me. It's such a perfect match for what the child needs.
And that no matter if we're talking about the biblical readings, the studies that we do, or the sacraments, all of this fits into God's plan, which is one of the touchstone presentations for this age child. And all of these things fitting into this sacred history that we hear about, the children really start to ask themselves, what is my place in this? And how can I contribute to God's plan? And that's it, that cosmic task. And what is it that I can do to help bring about this cosmic communion that we hear about when we read the Bible, when God will be all in all.
Right. Because that's so close to what the cry of this age child is what is my place within this plan?
Mm-hmm.
They're so much more in the response. They're ready to respond to the gift at this age and figure out what their specific gifts are that are they're supposed to respond to this greater picture with.
And it absolutely thrills the children when they look back in history and they see the contributions of other people. And for them, that's something they can really attach to, and how people have been throughout time, anonymous people have been contributing to this plan of God. And yet now I have this opportunity as well.
Right.
And so I think that's a thrill for them to think about time and to think about their place in history.
Right.
Yes. And first they have to just take it in. They have to see the big picture and be enthralled with it before. And it's a very gradual turning inward to that place where they start to ask those questions. But first they see, and this is what the plan does for them. It's the big picture, that it all started with this vast universe being created out of pure love, and that someone is directing it, even so much as entering into it, guiding it towards perfect order and harmony, which is the goal, communion, a cosmic communion of love. And that's the end and the fulfillment of it all. And the children, even from level 2, understand. They've always heard God will be all in all, just from the time they've done the Fatusha. They know the end of the story. They know the end of the story is good. They know it's all good. Even though they see obstacles and even though they see darkness in it, they know what the ending is going to be. And that's what feeds their hope. And in the level 3, I love that we give them this big picture. And then with every work, every presentation, we're calling them, where do you see light? Where's the light here? Calling them to look for the signs of light spreading and the growth of the kingdom. Always calling their attention to how God is helping us, that he doesn't want to do it all by himself. He wants to do it through us. What a dignified pleasure to know that God wants to do it through us, but the children know that we can't do it ourselves. And so we also call their attention again and again to how is God helping us? He wants us to do it, but we know we can't do it. So how does he help us? And that's where the sacraments and the and prayer and that comes in, with his helping us to unfold his plan, because he wants us to unfold it. That's our blank page.
And I've got, this is just written by a child, 12 years old, Chris. And Julie, I think he's really addressing that as well, too, in his realization. And if I can just read what he wrote here, he said, "The Lord has put himself in his creation. I can see him everywhere. The trees blowing in the early evening wind, they are filled with him. The flowers are filled with him on a spring morning. The birds who sing for us all day and all night, they too are filled with him. He has put his creation in place and let it fend for itself, but he has not abandoned us. He is always in and around us until the end of time."
Very beautiful.
That's really neat. I love that, because in this you can see so much that he has obviously sat with and received the gift of God's presence and the gifts that he's surrounded with. And now he's responding with this beautiful prayer back to God of what he has received. That's really neat.
I had a beautiful response from a girl one year when we were doing the plan of God, and her response to this, after we rolled out, one week we do the narration with no materials. The next week we roll out the strip and talk it up and see the whole big picture again. We got to the end and she said, she was just out of breath. She said, "No one has ever told me this before. I want to do it." And she wasn't meaning that she wanted to work on the strip, the timeline of the plan of God. She wanted to unfold God's plan.
Yeah.
And she was so filled with that enthusiasm.
Hey, when I did my level 3 formation, I felt very similar. Like, I have grown up very active in my faith and have learned many things. And then when I went to level 3, I was like, how do I not know this? Like, why, like typology, for example? It's like, I had never heard of typology until I did my level 3 formation. And what a different way to read the Bible. What a more authentic way to read the Bible and to be able to sit with the scripture. And I can relate to that. Why has anyone ever told me this?
Yes, that biblical history, that's the part that I love so much. I was privileged to spend about 4 semesters in my college days with a Jewish rabbi who taught me Old Testament. And I think that's when I fell in love with Old Testament. And that's one of the reasons I love level 3 so much, because there's so much Old Testament that feeds our faith, it feeds our sacraments and our prayer life. That typology. The typology for me also is the thing that feeds my faith more than anything else. To be able to see those connections between Old Testament, the great Old Testament stories, and Christ and redemption, and then forward to what's coming for us in the future, the parousia.
Right.
That's the source of hope.
Right.
I think, too, the wisdom of Sophia in saying, let's hold off on these Old Testament readings and studies until the children truly have that capacity to enter into history and travel in time. And so many approaches to spiritual formation for children, they begin with the Old Testament.
Yeah, like the flood.
Yes, at 3 years old, hearing about that. And so it's just a whole different experience for this older child, and how they can enter into this and truly see that golden thread, like Julie was talking about, that connection between the Old Testament redemption and then parousia for them.
Right. I appreciate Sophia's wisdom with that too. I did not see that until, again, my CGS formation about the Old Testament. Really, you do need to have a more developed mind in order to be able to read it properly. And I remember when I did my first level 1 formation, the formation leader talked about that and how we tend to give like the story of the flood, the Noah's Ark, like as if it's some kind of cutesy story to toddlers, and, you know, decorate nurseries with Noah's Ark and stuff, when really that story is not a cutesy story. It has a beautiful message with it, but it's deep. It's a hard story to, when you read the true scripture of it. So you need to be an older mind in order to fully grasp what the story is trying to convey. And I think that we lose some of that when we simplify it to try and give it to younger children. And so I appreciate Sophia's wisdom that she said, no, to fully understand the depth of that God is trying to convey in a story like this, we need to wait. We need to be more founded in God's love first with the young child, to where when we hit a story like the flood, we don't question that we were first rooted in love. That's really wise. And I so appreciate Sophia's wisdom in telling us that.
Mm-hmm. It matches the capacity of this age child too, because now they understand time so much better than when they were younger. They have the capacity to move through time with their creative imagination, and they can make more sense of it, whereas they wouldn't be able to make sense of it until they're oriented in time. And that's the beauty of this age child too. And that it's all of these stories, you know, they cover centuries and centuries and so many amazing characters and events, but the way that they're presented in a level 3, always coming back to the big picture, always starting with the whole big picture, looking at one particular piece of it and then coming back to the whole again. Mm-hmm. And in the level 3, they come to see that all of the covenants that God made with all of these people in these Old Testament stories is the force that unfolds his plan. It's the force, it's the energy that accomplishes it and moves it forward, getting us to the point of fulfillment in parousia. It overcomes all obstacles. And so, yeah, the covenant is really important and kind of pervasive through all the level 3 Old Testament studies.
And we certainly don't abandon the Good Shepherd or the true vine on that, but it's just that covenant reality is then expanded in history on that, seeing all of sacred history in this new way for the older children.
And the children are so good at synthesizing at this age that they make those connections constantly. They talk about the Good Shepherd and the true vine as we're doing all of these other presentations. Right. They make those links to, themselves.
Right. So again, they're able to pull it all back together, back into that essential message that is truly what is being conveyed. Yeah.
I have another example of a comment of a child demonstrating how cosmic their hearts are at this age, that they want they want all of reality. I was privileged to guide two of my grandchildren through their preparation for the sacraments about a year and a half ago. They were just coming into the Catholic Church. And so they were preparing for sacraments a little bit later than what we're used to in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. So I was able to help guide them through that. But one night in the meditation for First Communion, First Reconciliation, the catechist asked my granddaughter, Sophia, what are you most looking forward to about your First Communion? And her answer, she was about 9.5. She said, I'm so excited to be united with everyone all over the world.
Wow.
I just think that's a great demonstration of the cosmic heart of this age child. That's just so beautiful. And she knew that Eucharist is what was going to accomplish that for her, to unite her with people all over the world.
That also shows that they have a desire for that. They want to be connected.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, what has this age child taught you about God?
Lots. I love the way that they respect God's justice. I love that they don't have a problem with all the endings of all those parables that end, that adults just cringe at the endings of those parables. The 10 bridesmaids getting locked out of the wedding celebration, the man who refused to wear the wedding garment gets thrown out to gnash his teeth, the unforgiving debtor thrown in jail till he pays the last penny, the worthless servant scolded for bearing his talent, the separation of the sheep and the goats, all of these things that adults just really, our hearts just kind of crinkle inside us when we read those endings. But the children, it makes perfect sense to them. They take God's justice very seriously. They don't try to rationalize and smooth over sinfulness. And that has taught me a lot. I love that about this age child. I just love their responses to those parables.
And when I think about really what they've taught me, I think one of my greatest lessons has been that all time, all history is sacred. Because as adults, I think so many times we come to kind of a juncture where we start to live our lives in a way that there's a path that we can think of as our secular path, and whatever it is we do for a job, and those type of things. And then there is who we are on Sundays or when we're doing a Bible study. But in some way, those get separated. Those paths get separated a little bit. And that does not exist for the children. To them, all history is sacred. It all involves God. And so for me, that's been one of my greatest gifts, I think, to come from the children and just to help me keep that perspective of life, really.
I think in respect to that too, their desire to contribute is so obvious, and they express it often, and their love of just even the joy that which they work with the things in the atrium. It's taught me that, thinking again about God, how wants to do it all through us, and He wants to help us to help Him to accomplish His goal, no matter how small our contribution might be. He relishes our contribution, and He gives us what we need to be able to contribute. And that inspires me each week when I go in and I see how much they love the work, and they love that they're a part of this big picture, that they're unfolding God's plan. And they're so little, and they know that their contribution is valued and important.
Yeah.
Don't we all want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant?
Yeah, I hear so much dignity in what you're talking about. Like I hear that they're craving dignity, but they're also being given dignity with what God is asking them at this time for their contributions, and that need is being met there. That's really awesome. Is there anything else that y'all want to lift up about the religious capacities of this age child?
They're so compassionate. I love to see their compassion. It goes way beyond just a common courtesy. They really care about the world, and they care about each other, and they help each other.
And I think, too, when we think about the child in level 2, we know we begin quite a bit of moral exploration then with the children in the moral life. And then in level 3, there's a progression of, you can think of it in level 3, the mirror is really turning for them to examine themselves and their own lives in that. Like, for instance, in level 2, when we read the Good Samaritan, how quick they are to say who's doing the wrong thing in there. And there's no question about that. But then in level 3, things get a little quieter because that mirror has turned, and they are thinking to themselves, would I cross the street so I wouldn't have to help my injured neighbor? on that. And they begin to really see themselves in those parables. And there's, for me, a real richness in that for them too, as they consider that. And it's really in that area because it's the same plane of development from 6 to 12. But I think for me, it's been in moral formation where I see like the biggest difference in that 9 to 12-year-old child.
Well, we talk about how like the first half of the plane is almost absorbing and the next is the refining of it. So that makes total sense that the 6 to 9-year-old is absorbing all the morality, but then the 9 to 12-year-old is refining, well, who am I within that reality? And I'm thinking about also those kids, like those 7-year-olds celebrating their first reconciliation. And, so many of them, when they're doing their own personal examination of conscience, it's hard for them to figure out what they have done. And, you have those moms behind them that are like, can I write for you? But what I hear you saying is it maybe takes till they're 9 to 12 for them to really see themselves inside of those parables as not just the Good Samaritan, but maybe I'm also the Pharisee, like maybe I'm the Levite, like they can see themselves in all the different roles within the parable. And that might take till the 9 to 12-year-olds to get there. And that's okay.
That's right. Yes. It's a journey, a beautiful journey, an adventure. Yes.
I think I heard Mary Marioni say it one time about let them stay at that stage where they don't feel like they've done anything wrong. They have the rest of their life to feel guilty about stuff. So let them stay feeling innocent. Who are we to rush them out of that?
Yes. Yes.
But I love too that they're so they starting to see their shortcomings more, but they're so readily accepting of forgiveness. I love the Armor of Light experience in the level 3, where each week we maybe read a parable or a maxim, and we take it home and try to live it in the context of it is our armor that protects our light and makes our light shine brighter. And the things that they share when they come back, when we ask them, well, so how did it go? How did that armor work? How does your light fare this week after taking that armor home? And then culminating in receiving the actual sacrament in the atrium with those children at the end of Lent is just another one of my favorite parts of level 3. Mm-hmm. I love that we give them all of these tools to be able to collaborate in this big picture that they see. They see this picture of this wonderful reality around them, that God is here and He is driving it, and He is in us doing the work through His sacraments and His word. And the reality as best they can, because they see the beauty of it. They see the harmony, and they have this longing for that harmony and that peace of Lucia that they know is coming, but they don't know how to live in order to make their lives cooperate with that harmony and that peace to get us there. And so when we give them things like the virtues and the parables and the 10 commandments and the maxims, they love them. They love them because they recognize this is how to do it. This is my tool for living well in this reality that I find myself in.
And in many of their artworks and things, as they hear about the blank page, I'll see it expressed with question marks. Like it will say, have the white area, and there will have question marks. And then what Julie was saying there, that is the answer to that question. This is how I live, by using these things, these helps that I'm given in writing my blank page. I can contribute and be a part of this history.
Another one of my favorite lines from a child, I think it was in one of Sophia's books, but remember when she was talking about the maxims in the cosmos and in the heart of the human person, which is a work that we do in level 3. And it's a work where we look around the world and we see everything follows rules. It creates, again, that inner longing inside of this aged child to want to contribute to that harmony. And so, yes, I need to follow rules. to contribute to that harmony, to do my part, to write my blank page, I want to follow Jesus's words. I want to follow his commandments. And the one line that I love repeating is the little boy who said, it's like love is our address. They just relish it. They relish the rules and the guide rails because it's their security and their safety to know that they are contributing, that they're living a life that's pleasing to their good shepherd, and also doing their cosmic task of bringing their contribution to the unfolding of his plan towards that perfect moment of parousia.
I would like to just address, I get the question quite a bit about from catechists from level 1, and they would ask, why would I want to go on to do a level 3 course if I don't think I'm going to be in a level 3 atrium? And to them, I would just say that if you get the opportunity, you won't be disappointed if you go ahead and do it, because it will really give you that whole scope of everything in its beauty. And it will also give you the answer to questions about things like, why don't you present the 10 Commandments at an earlier age, or things like that, that it's just the whole beauty of the content. And so I would encourage catechists, even if they don't think they will ever be in a 9 to 12 atrium, to take the plunge and do the course just for your own enjoyment.
I would also say to them how much we appreciate you. You level 1 and level 2 catechists. You have normalized the children. And when we receive them in level 3, most of the children are normalized. They have social skills and they're on their way. They know how to nurture their own relationship with God, and their needs have been met, so they're ready to just blossom. And so that when we get them, it's such a joy to have them. Their reasoning minds and their ability to synthesize, to think abstractly, it's just a joy to sit with them and ponder the mysteries of God with them. So thank you for doing such a wonderful job. And I agree with Donna. Don't hesitate to come to level 3, because it will complete your formation.
Amen. Yes.
And it will be so satisfying for you. I promise it will be very satisfying.
I would agree that every formation that I have done has made me a better catechist, even just in level 1. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and all of your years of experience in the level 3 atrium. I really appreciate you both.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Good Shepherd in the Child podcast. In our show notes, you will find information about how to access the audiobook of The Religious Potential of the Child, the 3rd edition, that is read by Rebecca Royt-Savage, that is now available on Audible. Also in our show notes, you can find a link to submit a listener question. If you have a question about the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, we would love to answer it. This podcast is sponsored by the United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. We would like to thank all our contributing members because you are making this podcast possible. If you would like to know more about the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, or if you would like to become a member, please go to cgsusa.org. Thank you all for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Go and fall more deeply in love with God.